Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Trans Agenda. We have another guest, and
Oh, wow.
we were going to talk about gaming today, but then I found out that it's National Cleavage Day, so today's episode is now about boobs. Elf, thoughts on boobs?
Pretty good.
Ash, thoughts on boobs?
World hard and cold, titty soft and warm.
Yes. Okay, cool. That's the end of the episode. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
All right. Cue up the screen.
Yeah.
And we're out of here.
Yeah.
So we're joined today by the lovely Ash McAllan. Do you wanna introduce
Hi.
yourself?
Yeah, I'm a game designer and also a streaming GM. I do like some streaming that is of video games, but mostly I stream just a lot of role-playing games. But yeah, I make a couple of different role-playing games and things, and sometimes some digital stuff. But that's me. So yeah, I'm keen to talk about like how games and gender intersect, because I'm one of those theory nerds who likes to
So much of that stuff is
Yeah. I also do like a bunch of like Roll20 sheets and things like that. So, yeah.
I'm in the unenviable position today of having two Ashes on the show. So
I know, right?
And
Yeah.
It's fine. We managed to get through like what 6 episodes.
Dr. Nova was saying earlier that I'm in no trouble, but I doubt it because I'll just call her Dr. Nova, and
It's perfect.
that's my
Feed my supervillain ego, Elf.
Yeah.
I can
I'll
be
get my white dog and just stroke him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't have a dog, but I do have a wooden crocodile. That's the best I can do.
I've got like multiple cute trans girls in my Twitter feed who all have Nova in their name. And it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
You're this one and that one. Yeah.
And 2 of them have PhDs.
Yes, exactly. Right.
It's so weird.
Yeah. All of the Dr. Novas.
Yeah.
I am only aware of a single Nova, and that is Ashley Nova. And also Novas, presumably, that are in the sky somewhere that I don't want to know about.
There are lots of those.
Yeah.
So trying to wheel back around onto some semblance of a topic.
Yeah, sorry, I already took us like way off course.
So today we're going to talk about like gender in gaming and the intersections of how, I guess, how as trans people we have interacted with the gaming sphere. And I guess where we start is, do either of you two remember the first game that you got to create your own character and started living your true self through your game self?
Well, the wonderful world of MMOs introduced me to the concept of I can play a character that I want to make that could be anything, and always women characters. My friends were like, "Why do you always do that?" I'm like, "Because I do. Go away."
My first couple of World of Warcraft characters were like idealized versions of like my weird like attempt at masculine presentation. And then I was like, actually no, like from Alliance to Horde, and now I'm like an undead lady who casts fireballs, and I love her. And like I barely do ults. I've just got this one WoW character that I've had for like since vanilla that has like been my my comeback to of like, hey, like this is a character where you created an idealized version of herself, and she happened to be a zombie and shoot fireballs.
Yeah,
I mean that's a pretty good idealized version of yourself. If I could be that IRL, I would.
Yes.
Undead zombie that shoots fireballs, 100%. Yeah.
I specifically, it was really interesting because at the time I specifically was like, I'm going to make her like ugly. I'm going to make her not pretty. Because I was like, I'm not going to let myself indulge in the fantasy of like being like a pretty zombie, a nice, attractive. I was like, no, she's got to be like fucking scary.
See, I just leaned hard in the opposite direction and played a blood elf or a night elf. Those are the 2 options, nothing else.
I mean, that makes sense for you.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
Whenever I think of night elves, I never played a night elf in WoW, but I played a bunch of Warcraft 3, and I just remember the night elf archers, and if you kept clicking on them, they said a funny thing about G-strings.
Yep, they did.
Yeah.
It's a bowstring, not a G. Never mind. I believe
the one.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever made any lady characters in WoW because I was like probably repressing myself.
I mean, I used to play WoW with my father. Like my dad and I would play together. So it was one of those things where it was like at one point I did change one of my characters to like male because it was just easier to have that going on.
Yeah.
But like I regretted it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. It's really
the repressing thing. I totally get.
Yeah. Just being like, I can't play a girl character. That's weird.
How strange to do such a thing every day of my life that I play this game. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I was like 15 and like I'm trans as fuck, and then because of like the social situation, I ended up repressing after that. I managed to like go back into like my mental closet, and I was like,
you managed to regrow your eggshell.
Right.
But so here's the thing, right? Like how now that you're in that situation and we're like talking about that first like character or whatever that sort of you indulged in, you know. How much does that twig your like egg senses? I always feel like it twigs my egg senses when I see people making characters that are like very different to themselves as they present themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're interested in that thing, and that's awesome. I mean, you know, like that's cool, and like let's indulge in what that character would experience. Like this happens in tabletop a lot more for me than
in tabletop.
But I'm like, oh, you're making a character specifically that way. Okay, well, I will make sure the world treats that character the way they should. You know, they like exactly. You know,
and it's really interesting because it feels like you can tell. I feel like by the play style, the way that they play the character, like that's what twigs the egg sense for me. In that, like, for instance, and it's really interesting because like the flip side of that is that like watching someone like Strippin playing an anime girl in what's the VR chat makes me really uncomfortable because it's like I'm like no.
It's like this hyper masculine appropriation sort of thing.
It gives me like that. It makes my skin crawl.
So that is 100% my experience when I played Second Life.
Yeah, right.
In that I was one of those eggs who went into Second Life and used it to like literally live as someone different for a while. But it was also like filled with sex. Second Life was about sex.
Well, yeah,
and that's the point of that. That was the point of that entire thing.
Yep. Fair. No, I definitely like. I mean, my egg senses go off all the time, and like, I'm like, I mean, like it's like,
right?
And you're like, like people on the bus, and you're like, you're dressing in a very specific way, like,
not that people can't just dress however they want.
No, but like at the same time,
sorry,
there's definitely like things where it's like, yes, I remember dressing almost exactly like that for these reasons. Like,
I guess when you think about it. Like statistically, gender variance is like 1 in 100, and so if you're like,
which is like pretty, it's pretty high.
So
exactly. Like
chances are, if you're like walking through a busy like city center or something, you are gonna see some eggs.
Yeah.
And
it's like you know, you're probably gonna see either spot some eggs or spot like or like you know the thing where you where like I'm assuming you'll have the thing where like you see another trans woman and you clock each other.
Yeah.
And it's just that thing of like, Ah,
Hello.
hi.
Oh.
Yeah. Chat is mentioning non-binary options and like,
I've been playing in the Monster Hearts campaign I'm in. I've been playing my first like non-binary character.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I've really enjoyed it, mainly because it just means that like I'm playing someone who's gender fluid, and I can just be like, oh, it's a new day at school, let me describe my entirely different wardrobe for today.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, yeah, Tabletop actually like really does a better job of allowing for that. Whereas like it feels like even with like character creation in video games are like, okay, no, but we have to be able to like work out whether we put boobs on this mesh or not. Like that seems to be the problem, because like I don't understand why we don't just have like boob slider, hip slider.
I mean, like, yeah, why not, right?
Right, and then just pronouns. That's
So the first thing that comes to my mind is The Sims 4, which kind of embraced like non-binary gender wholesale, in that you still have to pick like a frame, but you can like make those as androgynous
like the
as you want.
Is unrestricted as well.
And you can do stuff like, no, this person stands to pee but can also get pregnant, and I'm like, okay, sure, why not? Great.
All right.
That's
and then the other thing that just popped into my mind, which I didn't think I'd bring up at all today, is Far Cry 5. In the from what I've watched, they always use gender neutral pronouns to refer to the player character.
That's really cool.
Because in that you can choose to play a dude or a girl as the deputy, but they always refer to you as the deputy, and they use they them pronouns to refer to them. It's probably laziness in that they don't want to record the voice lines twice.
But that's really cool.
Yeah.
Right, like that's. I mean, there's an interesting like thing there of like with like pronouns, in games and things. So apparently the enemies sometimes might.
But that's probably
non-binary.
that's I imagine that's like pre-recorded. It's all pre-recorded, but that's like in the moment enemy speak and the like recorded like scripted dialogue.
I mean, we're talking about like narrative dialogue versus like scripted like responses to actions, right? Like recording those things twice is not a big deal, whereas recording the whole script twice is a little bit more. Which makes you wonder, like, did they do that on purpose, or was it just like, hey, this helps our budget? You know what I mean?
I imagine it was probably the second one, but
that's the thing, right? Like, is without the intention, do we read into intentionality within that? Because I don't know. Like,
there was a really interesting discussion on Twitter the other day about the idea that that's like in Western English, or in English in general, it will likely become rude to not use they them pronouns for people by default. Like you would only use he or she her pronouns for people that you know quite well. Because that's the way that English tends to go, and also because there's a technological factor in that it is easier to program. And so those two factors are likely to create that sociological result. Whereas like something like a tabletop game doesn't have that. It doesn't have a technological restriction, but it tends to be more open on the social side. And it's really interesting. Because I do a bunch of making Roll20 character sheets. In the Roll20 like documentation, they have a thing saying, please make sure that if you have a gender field, that it is a text field, not like a drop down or a
that's really interesting. That's cool. I know.
Then that's
Roll20 has always been really great about identity stuff.
Yeah. But the weird thing is, like, I can't remember the last time I put a gender field into a character sheet, because what you actually want is a pronoun field.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
that's actually what you need for a role-playing game.
Mm-hmm.
You need pronouns and look.
Yeah.
You don't need a field that gives you a bunch of other loading.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a thing. Yeah, that is needed.
Can I go on a very short rant about superfluous boxes on character sheets?
Yes.
Sure.
I hate it whenever I get like a Pathfinder character sheet or a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet or anything else that just has like 12 boxes that's taking up a third of my character sheet. That's like, where were you born? Yeah, but who's your god? What's your mother's maiden name? And yeah, it bugs me so much. I don't want to, because it trains people who are new to the game that they need to fill all of that out at the start.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, just leave that alone. Just come back.
But Ash, how are we supposed to steal your character's identity if your father's mother's maiden name isn't on the character sheet? Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, so like this is a thing about game design in general. Like that's kind of bad game design in that, like, I always tell people the thing of like don't start with Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons. I get really frustrated when I go to like PAX and there's like panel on like getting into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, no, don't even do it. Go and play Adam Cobal's award-winning tabletop role-playing game Dungeon World, because it will teach you to fucking play role-playing games before you start being like.
Okay, sorry to interrupt in like a weird delay, but speaking of gender-related things, okay, and games, how do we feel about gender-fluid elves suddenly in D&D?
I know, right?
How do we feel about this? Because that was one of those things where I'm like, good. Actually, I'm not good.
I think it's pretty good. So from what I understand, the gender fluid elves isn't like a sudden thing. It just hasn't been in the player handbooks for like 3 editions.
No. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
You don't write it down. If it isn't right there, it doesn't fucking count. Okay?
Yeah, that's called the J.K. Rowling excuse, and it doesn't fucking work.
Bullshit.
Absolutely, 100%. But
I'm now like checking my 5e handbook because I think.
Oh, it hasn't been in Dungeons and Dragons since like 2nd edition.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because someone was saying that in the like fluff text for the 5e race, they said something about it, but I don't. As a thing,
I'm not really sure. But the thing is, if it were in there and if it were a thing, I'm sure I would have heard about it before now. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like,
but I guess there's at least from what I've seen, the discussion on Twitter has been the devs of that book, which is it's the Tome of Foes, right?
Yeah.
Have said we're not saying that only elves can be gender fluid. It's just that the elves have a strange magic that lets them change sex.
That was gonna be my next thing. Like when you write it in for one race, are you saying none of the others can do that?
Right. That's because that's the thing that like specifically happens in PBTA, right? PBTA specifically says if this like PBTA makes the assumption that if there is a move that exists in the game and you don't have it, then you don't have it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is really interesting because like if they do that, then I fully demand that girl dwarves have beards.
Yes.
Right. That
100%.
that like there be little enough because I don't give a fuck about elves most of the time.
Yeah.
I care about dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. You're my favorite elf. You're literally my favorite elf.
Yeah. See, if you had asked me before International Women's Day what I thought about how the big tabletop publishing companies are handling like gender stuff, I would have said go take a look at Pathfinder, because Pathfinder does a lot of really interesting things in what it does with just in the way it writes their books and stuff, and the pronoun usage in their books. And they have like a trans character who's like one of their big one of their big characters,
and she's a dwarven shaman. She's me.
Dwarven shaman is so great, and then they didn't put her in the promo image for International Women's Day.
Oh, that was brutal. But they did do a pretty good, they did one of the better apologies from as far as those sorts of things.
I mean, Paizo has always been a good company for that.
Yeah,
kind of particular stuff. To be honest, I'm more apologetic, or I'm more receptive to an apology of a slip up from them than from pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
I have had personal interactions with Paizo folks that have, been really, 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 really gratifying.
Yeah.
So
elves. This is from the 5e from the 5e handbook. They are more slender than humans, weighing only 100 to 145 pounds. Males and females are about the same height, and males are only marginally heavier than females. Elves, blah 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 blah. Elves have no facial and little body hair. They favor elegant clothing in bright colors, and they enjoy simple yet lovely jewelry. So, I can see them implying that,
you're implying androgyny, but you're separating male and female, from the get-go. That doesn't. That does not count. That does not count.
I feel like that combined with their little paragraph, their little side box on gender representation, that they put in the player's handbook, I feel like those are kind of passable as groundwork, but not.
I guess I'm just a huge exponent, or a huge what do you call it? I care a lot about being explicit about the things that you want in your game, or that you're the agenda that your game is putting forward, so to speak, in terms of what you want out of the play of that game, being explicitly written. Because if you say after the fact, oh yeah, that's what we meant, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, so that's the thing about
I don't
gender fluid elves is I found the tweet I was thinking of earlier, but Jeremy Crawford, and for the people who don't follow Jeremy Crawford's Twitter account, it's just where he talks about everything he wrote wrong in the Dungeons and Dragons books and clarifies everything. Don't be Jeremy Crawford, just write your games properly.
Just write it good.
But he was saying of course, there's no rules in Dungeons and Dragons around gender. People can be whatever gender they want. Anyone can be gender fluid. That is 100% okay. We're just writing about a group of elves that happen to have the ability to fall asleep and wake up as a different sex.
But I also think from that perspective, if we're talking about rules of games and what the rules are around and all that stuff, there's a huge section on making your character and their appearance and all that stuff, and
and they could have added something to say you can be any gender you want.
When you say there are no rules, and they do have something akin to that, but they also are saying it's not important, but then spending a couple of pages talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's either have rules or don't, you know. And if it's not important in play, then why make such detailed statements about it? You know what I mean? I'm not really sure where I'm going with this. It's just one of those things that's you can't address it and then backpedal saying that it's not important.
Is what we're saying that 5th edition is a hot mess of a game that is not really finished in the book? Because that's what it sounds like.
What I'm saying is that I think that the approach here is we have a thing, we're not going to write a new thing, but we are going to talk about how this thing that we presented is wrong or problematic in some way. And instead of publishing a new thing, we're just going to tell you about how it's wrong or whatever. And the essential core thing does not change. You know.
Can I just point out how kind of messed up it is that the book that introduces elves that can change their sex is called the Tome of Foes.
The Tome of Foes, yeah.
Right? Yeah. I feel like that's slightly better than if it had been introduced into Volo's Guide to Monsters, right? Like,
Yeah.
like they're not monsters; they're just foes.
Foes.
Like, you know, like I'm pretty used to like monster as like the descriptor for trans people. So, but, like, here's a fun question. Like, I haven't read the like any of the text or anything about the stuff in Home of Foes, but do they wake up as another binary gender? Another binary sex?
I mean, it is binary, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like they're so androgynous. Why not just?
It's not even about gender. It's about changing their physical
sex.
Characteristics.
Yeah.
But like they don't wake up with, you know, like with mix and match sets,
Nope.
right? Like that's
not?
Or like asex, like non-sexed.
I guess it's kind of like,
as far as I can interpret, no, it's binary.
Yeah.
It's still binary.
Which is like, if you're gonna do that, why did you, like, elves are an androgynous race anyway? Why are you now like making them flip back and forth?
Okay, it's fine. We're just gonna
apocalypse. Okay. Well,
all elves.
Apparently Crawford said that they can choose neither in a video. So again,
but
why
isn't that in the book?
Yeah, it'll depend on what the is. I haven't seen it, so
like.
Yeah.
Like shout out to PBTA, like PBTA games and stuff for like, you know, like kind of, especially because like Apocalypse World kind of nails this, and it's like, look, man, like man is a look, right?
Yeah.
Like woman is a look, so is, you know, hooded stranger. Like
I'm really glad this particular topic took us on such a like ramble. The like, because it's like, the whole gender in games thing depends on the game, obviously. And I thought like the most popular one being D&D, you know, by a fair margin, I would say. They have to kind of like be like not leaders, but like they have to put forward like a good foot forward if they want like that community, right? Because there's plenty of other stuff that already knows how to do this, you know, like you're saying with PBTA and stuff like that.
So can we then sort of talk about how at least in tabletop there are definitely some groups and games that encourage anyone can be gay, or they can be whatever gender they want, and that's just a part of their character, and it comes up every now and then. Or games where I'm thinking like Monster Hearts, or games that are really about identity, where your character can be gay, but we might use that as a, like, I might push you on that. Or like in, I guess, Girl by Moonlight, where at least when I played it a very long time ago, I don't know how it's changed, in that you can say that this is a world where homosexuality is something that is pushed against. Yeah.
I mean,
I think I made some points in that ramble.
I think that's about the themes of the game, and that's about buying into what you're playing and choosing to be a participant in certain things and what have you. Like, if what you want is to be like, you know, a trans elven ranger, you know what I mean, and that's what you want, and you don't need to put any more details to that, and like that's, you know, that's a thing that you'll deal with at various stages through the character, but it's not like the central theme of the game. Then great. But if you want to like dig into stuff that, like you're saying, there are games that do that or challenge that or like address that more directly, and I think that's less about gender representation or like gender in games, and more about which game you're picking to address which thing. Because if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons for a deep character story, you're never going to get there. The mechanics do not allow for the game to do that. You may have a deep character story, and you may come up with some amazing narrative, cool, awesome, super special, great things that are fantastic memories for you. But how many dice did you roll?
Yeah. How much XP did you get? How many XP do I get for defeating dysphoria?
Yeah. about as much as you get for romance. Like the thing is though, like D&D 5th edition is such an attempt by Wizards to bring 4th edition OSR and a third hand for like PBTA style story games into one thing. And that's the reason it's a hot mess, right? Is because it's trying to do all those things at once. It's trying to give you the like deep story thing. That's what background and inspiration and all of that sort of shit is. And that's why it doesn't work. But it's trying, but it's that problem of like, when you're doing game design, you need to know what your game is about and make the game about that, right? Like, don't play like Emily is my partner Emily is all about Iceland. She has been there on residency, and like she really likes, you know, exploring the language and culture of that country. But there's no way she's playing Sagas of the Icelanders, because as a non-binary person, the way that that game explores gender is not comfortable to her, because it specifically explores gender in a very rigid
binary
way.
Yeah,
right? That's what it's about.
Yes.
Yeah, and Monster Hearts is about queerness through the lens of like monsterhood. If it's not about, if gender doesn't have a role in what your game is about, don't put it in there at all. Right?
Yeah.
My game is about like badasses who go into the jungle and try and like hunt down a giant monster that has been killing people and that sort of thing, right? You don't need anything about gender in that at all.
It would be tertiary at best.
Yeah. Like, so just leave it out, right? Like, all you need at most is like regularly is pronouns and look.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And switching tacks a little, because I think this will be another just steamy little topic.
Juicy topics.
Trans representation in video games recently.
Oh my god. Thoughts? Okay, good.
Tell me what's good, what's bad. Express for me your opinion.
Good. Dragon Age Inquisition. Bad. Mass Effect Andromeda.
I know, right? Like, Andromeda is so the Mass Effect, like the Mass Effect team being like, yes, the Dragon Age team did a really interesting thing with a trans character. Maybe we could do that.
So the difference.
Interestingly, the other one that I think of is Baldur's Gate. Siege of Dragonsphere has a random that just like tells you her story in a blurt out, and that's it. There's nothing else relevant about it.
I feel like it makes more sense for Magenta than it does for the Andromeda character.
Oh, sure, it's one paragraph of text, and it's set fire to the internet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
I still have
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Trans people can be open about stuff. I'm fucking open about it. You ask me about it, I'll blurt out a paragraph of my story to you. You know,
it just didn't make any sense for the character in Andromeda, right? Like, it didn't make sense now.
I can. So for those of you who don't know, the character in Andromeda is a trans woman who specifically like came to Andromeda to like ditch their old identity and transition, which I think is a fucking great idea. Like, the idea of like, I'm just gonna ditch my family and my bullshit home, and I'm gonna go to another fucking galaxy and live as my true self.
I mean, my actual story is almost that. Like, I moved to a city where nobody knew me, and that was it.
But at least in the original like game as released, they've patched it since. You walk up to this character, you say hello, and within like 3 lines of dialogue, they're like, "Oh yeah, no, this is my old name. This is my old job. Now I'm a woman." And I'm like, "But why would you tell me?
You were trying to ditch your identity and move to a new place in the universe."
But then when they patched it in, so you had to like keep interacting with this character, and they gave her a bunch of new dialogue, but there wasn't rewards for that, so no one did it.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to give me XP. I'm not going to go talk to every single NPC. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Compared to Krem in Inquisition, who was amazing throughout. The difference is, even though they're both BioWare games, is the devs on Inquisition, because they knew Krem was such an integral character to the game, got a bunch of trans people in and did focus groups and tested the character and said is this good? What can we change? What can we make better? Whereas the devs on Andromeda just didn't make an effort and tried to half-ass it.
Is it bad that my initial knee-jerk reaction to the two of them being so vastly different from the same company is that Krem is a man and the Mass Effect Andromeda character
quite
is
possibly
a woman?
Yeah.
And how that I think fucking happens.
I mean, sure, but also I think that there's the element there of them being different teams, right? And I think that's really there's very little overlap between those teams. Developmentally.
Yeah. But I also think that when you're talking about writing in general, people write the idea, quote unquote, and this is not what I believe, you know what I mean? But the idea of a woman embracing masculinity way more easily than the opposite.
Oh yeah, that.
There's so much more problematic stuff that comes up when you have a quote unquote man becoming a woman than the other way around in any narrative written by any kind of cisgendered person.
Yeah.
From my experience, in the stuff that I have come across. But I don't know how you two sort of feel about that. I don't know.
I mean, no, that's the thing, is that there's a certain amount of discourse to be had, and I feel like it's probably not fair of us to have that discussion without having at least one trans man.
I agree.
In the discussion, because we as trans women can be oh yeah, well it's the patriarchy supports people who are transitioning towards masculinity because blah blah blah, but that's it. We can't have that discussion genuinely without that either having a trans man in or erasing trans men's experience. So it's a bit tricky.
I agree. This is just the thing that I have noticed,
and I've noticed that as well. I just don't want to I don't want to put my foot in my mouth talking about
I think my only problem, and it's not really a problem, just criticism with Inquisition, is I would have loved a dialogue choice when you go and talk to Krem and he's talking about his transition and explaining that I used to be a woman, I'm a man now, and you just a dialogue option for your character to say, "Oh, me too." That would have been so great. That would have made yeah.
That would have been just fucking and this is the thing, I did a thread about on Twitter about how you can include trans people in video games and just that thing of incidental dialogue lines, right? You can just add a dialogue line that lets you establish post character creation that your character has been trans all along.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's a great way to do that. Because there's so many ways you can really fuck up in creating trans characters in so I get one of the questions I've been asked at Q&As at cons and things a couple of times has been and it's usually by very socially awkward dude presenting folks, and it's always how can I role play a trans woman or a trans person without in a role-playing game, in a tabletop role-playing game, without being offensive and horrible. And my response so far has been either spend a lot of time listening to trans people or don't do it. And I'm really I'm really like I want to. Something in me wants to like write a thing on like here's a bunch of things you can do to establish that your character is trans without like making it gross.
Yeah, without like
I had a friend in when I was doing my PhD who was starting to write sci-fi novels. And he approached me and said like I want to like include a trans like character in my book. And I was like, dude, this is the first book you're like writing and you're trying to like include a character who has probably one of the most complicated like ideas in there, and you want them to be like a main character who's going to be in 2/3 of your narrative. I'm like, just don't do it, because you don't, unless you're prepared to spend like 500 hours researching, you're never going to get the experience right.
Yeah, like I've been I've done consulting for a couple of like authors doing fantasy novels where and at least one the main character was a trans man, and it was like, oh, and there's like they have this fucking magical companion that like represent that like that feeds off of their feelings, and it's like, oh, now that's like making boy feelings. That's weird. I don't have boy feelings. It's like it's more complex than this, and you can't just write it as magical fantasy bullshit.
So we're well off topic in novels now, but I've just been listening to the audiobooks for His Dark Materials, the Philip Pullman books. And in those books, all of the characters from a certain like world have animal companions basically that are linked to their souls, and everyone has an opposite gender companion. So if you're a woman, your demon is a man or a male animal. With the exception, there is one like offhand comment made quite early in the first book, where they just a passing like NPC basically of this character is a man, and also his demon was male, which is kind of doesn't happen very often. And not placing like any like judgment on that. But just like that's something that happens in rare cases, and I'm sitting here wondering, like, Philip Pullman wrote these like in the early 90s, and I want to write an email to him and be like, was this character trans?
I mean, that character's definitely trans. I don't care what the author thinks.
Yeah. Who cares what the author thinks?
I mean, like if we're talking about like fantasy shit, Magena from Dragonspear is a really good example, because she lives because Dragonspear is Forgotten Realms, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, when we're talking about Baldur's Gate specifically, when we're talking about like that kind of era of D&D as well, we're in an era where there was a lot of that binary magic going on.
What happens if a non-binary person puts on the like belt of gender swapping nonsense?
Couldn't tell you, because they
turn into like a bird?
Well, it's opposite sex though. It's not opposite gender, right? Like that was the thing. And there's a whole storyline in Baldur's Gate 2 involving Edwin, one of these like lawful evil wizard types, who like embraces this cool magic that he's like, oh fuck yeah, we got this secret magic from this tomb and we killed this lich to get it, and I'm so powerful that I'm gonna read it myself, and reads it and then is transformed into a woman. And they play it so shittily the whole fucking time. It is the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's not meant to represent like anything trans, because it's like against his will, you know what I mean? But also like being in that situation is then a representation of trans things, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And when you are a piece of shit through the whole thing, it's so difficult, and all the other characters are pieces of shit, and it just like it drags the whole cast, who are otherwise super cool, down into this mire of like
there's a webcomic of that exact thing, where a character like goes up to a witch and is like, witch, I need a potion of gender changing so I can get into this special dungeon that only women can enter. And she gives him the potion and he drinks it. He's like, oh wait, no, my body didn't change. Oh, but oh dear. And like just given a potion of gender dysphoria. I feel very uncomfortable now. Yeah, I feel really uncomfortable now. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, that was a bottle of gender changing. You wanted sex changing. I have it right here.
Yeah, but she also, but the witch also offers her like another, like you can have, like I can switch your gender back if you like.
And they're like, if you like.
And it's that feeling of like, no, is that weird thing about being trans where it's like, would you like to be like cis? Not really.
Not really.
Not particularly. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's really Adam in chat was saying agender characters become supremely gendered. It's like
it's that thing of like gendered.
From being like 0 on both the like feminine and masculine scales to being like really gender fucked in the like both maximum masculine
like
and maximum feminine. Yeah,
I can't remember the guy's name. There was normally I don't bring up drag queens, but there was a drag queen who won Eurovision a couple years ago who also just has a full beard.
Yes. Conchita Wurst.
Yes.
Which is just like
I cannot talk about this subject. I just can't.
Yeah.
We'll move on.
And I'm not going to.
So let's talk about like let's jump back onto role-playing games because that's where we were supposed to be. And like Dragon Spear is a discussion of that anyway. But I'm really interested in because we talked about like create like the first time like who was your first like video game character where you expressed yourself. What's the time difference between that and like playing in a like tabletop or LARP sense a female character? And like because that's a much more involved thing from my perspective.
LARP is an interesting one, if only because we're talking about like fully kitting out as this character and like being this other person. And I've seen lots of eggs at LARP.
Yes,
lots of eggs. It is a very trans inclusive community.
So I'm literally only remembering this now. So this is like me remembering me being an egg before I knew I was an egg. In that when I LARPed, like it was 2010, so like 8 years ago, I remember asking my friends that I was going with, like, does anyone like play characters who are like not the gender they are? Can people do that? Not saying can I do that. But is that
not for me?
Not me. But does anyone else? Like, is that an acceptable thing? I don't remember the answer that they gave me.
The thing for the answer for like the communities I've been in for that is like generally no, they don't. But when they do, you know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like,
it's
fairly easy, and it's completely acceptable. You know what I mean? Obviously. But it's just funny. Tabletop wise, it took a long time. I played a lot of men, and now I refuse to play a man in anything.
That's right. Like
I just like flat out will not do it.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to play a video game. I don't want. Well, I will play video games where there's only a central character who's a man because I have no other choice. But I hate those, by the way. But when it comes to role playing stuff, like tabletop stuff and stuff where I have a choice, never will I play a male character. Like again, it's too much of a bad time.
Yeah, it like I was gonna say I have the same thing. Like I'm like maybe I should like occasionally play a male character, and like because I'm GMing a lot, I often portray male NPCs. And I could do that fine, but yeah, the idea of only having one character and having that not be a woman for me is I would struggle to play an ND character even, because because womanhood is a thing that is that took me so long to get to and is really important to me in that way. like talking about like games where you like video games where you play like there's a preset character.
But those games aren't about that character mostly. They're
No,
about everyone else.
But games like Tomb Raider or Horizon Zero Dawn, like the fact that we're getting all of these games now with female leads is like so important, like to a lot of people, but also like to me personally, because like, you know,
I agree.
I get dysphoric about playing masculine characters. And like the new Uncharted game, like I love Uncharted. Like I've enjoyed the Uncharted series, but the new one, Lost Legacy, like I was just like crying because I was so like, that game is about women and their interaction with and like women being powerful and how that's different to like masculine power and how those interact and all those sorts of things. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was just like, to have those themes be so explicit in a like, because if you look at Tomb Raider, it's like it's about a female character who is doing like adventure stuff, but it's not about her womanhood.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and actually, interestingly, like I wanted to, when you're talking about Tomb Raider, I wanted to say, like, do you think that like Lara Croft, quote unquote, is one of those characters that's like been reappropriated from that like masculine gaze of video gaming to being like a badass lady?
100%.
I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
because like in the 90s, it was all like, oh yeah, Lara Croft, you know, like like
just the Angelina. As much as I love the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider films, from a these films are hilariously bad standpoint, they are like 100% male gazy.
Yeah, I mean, like I totally use the male gazy part, the male gaziness of it as an excuse for my egg self, right? I was like, it's fine. No, I'm playing it because she's sexy, and I like the sexy lady.
Yeah,
it's fine. I mean, just gonna run around in small shorts and have guns. That's weird.
I would never say that this character was free of that stuff, because having it in your past means it will forever haunt you forever. But yeah, like at least it's moving in a direction where it's like, no, she's just kind of badass, you know, like. It's not really about that anymore.
What I want is, if you've seen the Uncharted 4 epilogue, I want her to grow up to be the new Lara Croft, and for her to just be amazing. And that's that's what I want. I want her. No, I want her and like a flashback younger Lara Croft to fall in love. That's what I actually want.
100%. Yeah, let's make it gay.
Yeah, let's make it gay.
So do we roll over to questions from chat, you think, Ash? I think we're about that time.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, and there's probably way more ground we can cover, but doing questions might be the best thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, direct us, chat, direct our blade.
Yeah.
So while chat is still catching up, I'll say, like, I did recently play like a male character in a campaign, but it was more that I had ideas about cultural stuff that I wanted to explore, and I was kind of just ignoring the character's gender. But I did end up ditching him and going back to my old character, because I was like, this is much more fun for me just to play Lady Sherlock Holmes and do that, because it's great.
Yeah, I played a closeted trans girl recently, and I in Luke's game Shipwreckers, and I was like, I'm gonna be a trans person in like 1800s Cornwall, where they have no way to like express this, and they're just full of this horrible feeling, and I'm just gonna be horrible like dysphoria feels into this game, and just channeled younger me, and it was very emotional.
I think the only experience I've had as a sort of like trans character in a game, because I generally don't play trans characters. I want to avoid that complicated mess in my fantasy worlds generally. Unless it's specifically about that, in which case great. But was the Dogs in the Vineyard game on the Roll20 channel was the only time that I've played a trans character, and I did it incidentally and realized how much internal shit I have that was like screwed up about the way I was sort of like going about doing things in that game because of the way I believed that game was supposed to run, you know what I mean, and like was supposed to be, and like the things that I believed in that. And that's the only time that really happened, and it was entirely like not something I planned when I made the character. It just kind of ended up that way because of the way I felt about things and the way I wanted to play a certain situation, basically.
Cantrip in chat was asking what would you feel about Overwatch adding an openly trans character to the lineup? Do it, you cowards!
Do it, Overwatch. Do it, Blizzard. Stop ignoring gay Tracer. You made her gay. Do more stuff with that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And yes, don't
Moira is 100% NB. Like, I'm sorry, but like,
don't cop out and make Diva trans or make Zarya trans. Like, because that's what I feel like that's what Blizzard would do, and just make a new character.
I mean, it's on the Diva one because like. What is it about Diva that like signals trans to you?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing. It's something that comes up in Reddit in that people think Diva might be trans. Because she's a gamer and she does boy things.
Oh really?
Wow, really? Are we still living in
God.
1970?
No, thank you.
And definitely don't think Zarya trans because that plays into all kinds of bullshit.
Right? Yeah.
Should not be.
Yeah. 100% give me a trans Overwatch character.
Yeah.
What else we got? Anything else?
No other questions yet. That's all.
Not yet.
As far as like tabletop role-playing games go, I'm interested in which ones. So we've talked about Monster Hearts, and we've talked about Sagas of the Icelanders. I'm wondering if there are any games that we feel actually support any other games that support gender play.
I want to explore some serious shit in any emotional direction. You play Girl by Moonlight. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but Girl by Moonlight. Yeah, but it doesn't explicitly discuss gender.
I guess, but you can make it. Yeah.
Yeah. In what I've spoken to Andrew about Girl by Moonlight is that gender stuff is inherently baked into that game.
Yeah, it is, but like metaphorically, rather than explicitly.
Yeah,
which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% when I get a chance to play in a Girl by Moonlight game, I'm gonna play an unlikely hero who is an egg and have them change into a magical girl.
We're doing this,
and it's gonna be so great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. He just does point out that I have some games that I mean, like the Republic is the only one that specifically does anything to do with gender, and all it does is say, "Hey, it's fucked to be trans in an oppressive society," and that's shit. Like that's all it does. Like it just says, these are some things that it is fucked to, like the experience of being these things is fucked in an oppressive society. Like that's pretty basic, really. Like,
I mean, yeah, that's a statement of fact. Like,
yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm interested in like examples of discussing masculinity and femininity and those sorts of things, are there games that mechanize those things so it's in the game, not just in the like fluff, that that isn't gross, right? Like that's why I brought up Monster Hearts and Sagas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Monster Hearts is the game that I have the most experience with, that is about not just gender but about queer experience as teenagers. That's the point of the game. That's why you play it.
I feel like a lot of my role-playing game experience, and why I can't really contribute much more than this, like a lot of my role-playing game experience has been me escapisming the shitty parts of my life, which often contains the fact that I'm trans.
Yeah, 100%.
So I generally don't want to explore that or look at that more deeply. But I have often found amazing metaphors in playing non-human characters in D&D. Lots and lots of amazing metaphors. Playing non-human character. I played a tiefling. She got called a monster, and I had real feelings.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff.
Isn't there a background in Xanathars that's like a polymorphed that is?
Yes. No, it's not in Xanathars. It's in Xanathar's Lost Notes on Everything Else, which is like a DM's Guild supplement, and it is my favorite background. It is polymorphed, and it is the best D&D anything to represent a trans situation that I have ever read.
It's so like on point. Like everything that about it that like I saw was just...
If you have not read the polymorphed background in Xanathar's Guide or Xanathar's Lost Notes to Everything Else, do so. It is very informative. It is like dead on. I was sure that it's like written with the contribution of a trans person.
There's no way it wasn't.
Yeah. Or it's a huge coincidence, but I doubt that.
Yeah. I'm just looking up because someone in chat was asking what are some good ways to include trans people in a game, and I'm like, I have a list of this somewhere, because I wrote a list on Twitter because I was grumpy at.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
I was grumpy at the way it had been handled in something. I can't remember what it was. Video games. I'll see if I can find it in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. What else is on here? Mole has said, what do we think of the best representation of trans folks in video games and tabletop RPGs? I mentioned Krem a bunch. Krem is my favorite. Like,
it's really difficult for me to come up with a good best representation of trans people in RPGs, because I don't think there really is one yet that I know of. Not like one where I'm like, yes, I love you. You know? There's a lot of non-canon shit like that where I'm like, yes, that makes so much sense, but it's never explicit.
There we go. I found it. Alessia, who smiles at death in Magic the Gathering, though.
I guess, yeah.
She's pretty good. She's not in the. That's not explicit in the game though. That's in the like supplementary text.
Can I just? What is up with in generally like dystopian genres, or like near future stuff? What is up with this trope that the trans girl character you have is a hacker?
Yeah, weird, right? It comes up all the time.
The main one is Nomi in Sense8.
I can explain this. Because it's the same reason that there are so many trans women in the game development, in the video game development industry. And it's the same story that I have, and it's the same story that I've talked to a lot of people in the game development industry. When you are closeted and it's all weird, you want to socialize with that, like being in direct contact and having to do all these sorts of things. You want to enter a field that is not going to out you by being too feminine, but also isn't traditionally masculine. And you end up in IT. Okay. And then if you want to be a rebel, you end up being a hacker. If you want to be an artist, you end up developing games. Like that's what happens.
There you go. I 100% buy that.
All right, I'll take it. Yeah.
I know so many trans women in the game development industry who for whom that is a basic story. So yeah, it's really common. Yeah, Catherine is a hot mess. That's established.
Yeah.
Ways to include trans characters in video games have flashback sequences to childhood where gender presentation of the child self is not connected to their adult presentation. Have a sequence where some characters have to cross-dress without making a joke, and one character just refuses because of dysphoria. Have a trans woman just shave each morning, and like as a part of like getting ready, like brushing your hair and putting your guns on. Actually have like a trans woman voice your trans woman character, and then because we don't sound like cis women, and that's okay, right? Like trans women have trans women voices, and they are beautiful, and that is good. And like have a trans woman character who's voiced by a trans woman, and like fuck it, have it be a thing that like someone really likes, right? Like compliment it. Yeah, you can have a trans dude wearing a binder. If you have binarily gendered game effects that triggers, like, you know, like this only affects women or this only affects men, have like non-binary characters either be affected by both or neither, right? Just be like, they're immune to this because it's based on your preconception of gender, stupid wizard. Ha ha ha, I'm no man, but I'm also no woman, right? Like, character creation, just fucking don't restrict anything ever.
Don't ever restrict.
Yeah. One really interesting one is like having characters whose skeleton sets before, so they transition after 25, right? Like their skeleton is always going to be it is other gendered. Yeah, fucking magic potions. Good job. Dialogue options that mention being trans but don't make it a topic of conversation. Like, yeah, the thing is make it incidental. Don't overcook it.
Yeah, unless you're making a game that is specifically about the character being trans, don't make it about the character being trans.
Yeah, if that's not what the game is about, and you're spending heaps of time investigating that, just don't make that the central thing about their character.
It can be as incidental as the character had 2 gay dads.
Yeah. Yep. I Fly Dragons points out if you're gonna have binding in your game, make sure it's safe binding, because like unless you want to like have someone have like fucked up ribs from
I cringe every time I sit and watch, which is quite often, the Les Mis film. And there's the scene in that where Eponine is binding her chest with like bandages, and I'm like, no. But then I guess she dies after that anyway. So.
Yep. No.
It's okay to be unsafe if you're dead. I mean.
Ulysses, like polymorphed is a like as a background is a really great way to explore trans themes, and like that's the thing,
it's fantastic. Yeah,
about having to specifically like, you know,
I just had a crazy idea. What if can we have like undead trans characters, like you were saying about like characters whose skeletons have set, and then they transition someone whose skeleton is set, and then they've died, and then they've been brought back as like an intelligent skeleton, and then
they're like dysphoric about their skeleton. Oh no! No, I don't want to see that story. I don't want
sad skeleton.
I don't want sad skeleton time. I'm not into it. I want happy skeletons. That's why they're laughing. Yes. They got the twins.
Smile.
Oh no. The thing of like playing a trans character, you know, if you're playing a trans character in a role-playing game, like just make it normal.
You know what's a really good lead in to playing a trans character is be a fucking person. You know?
Right?
Like,
yes.
Like,
yeah.
Trey, as much as you may believe it, because we're sitting here on a show about trans stuff, ranting about trans stuff, it isn't our whole lives, right?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, here's a fun thing. If your trans character is in the first couple of years of their transition, they're probably going to talk about it a bunch.
It is about their whole lives, yeah.
Right? Like, because when it's the first couple of years of your transition, it's everything, right? Like, you're being like, hey, did you realize that, like, testosterone makes you produce tears less? That's crazy. Hey, let's talk about like how men and women have these different experiences. What about like non-gendered thing? Blah. Like it's all you can talk about for like a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, yeah, but also I do all this other shit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Would you like to instead talk about, you know, Foley?
I think if you're going to write a trans character into a game, or you want a trans character in your game, that is an important thing. Don't make their position the trans character that talks about trans things. Have them have some other thing that they do as well, and that that can be the path you pursue with them. So forth.
At the end of the day, it's the same as if you're a straight person writing a novel trying to include a gay character, or a white person trying to include a person of color in your novels. Like, research it and do it respectfully, and
don't make them a token. Like that's how you do.
Yeah.
I feel like now I want to go away and like write like a guide on like, here are some things you can do with your roleplay character to show that they're trans and not make it fucked up and weird.
Do it.
Yeah, why not?
Because I feel like people will want to do it and they'll have a go at it, and if there's a guide to help them, then fucking so be it. That'll help.
Cool.
Because, and like, I'm now so interested in like, how can don't start writing another fucking game, Ashton. You're writing too yeah, like, I'm like, what about a game that actually like mechanically explores this shit? It's like, no, don't start.
So Ash has Patreon where you can support her game design stuff.
That's true.
So if you want her to make a game that mechanizes gender, can it mechanize gender by making everyone mechas?
Oh my god, that would be amazing. Actually, that's a good point. I did kind of do this with, I wrote a game for the Queerly Represent Me zine called Solid Wood Jumbling Tower, because I couldn't think of a name for it. But it's basically Queer Battleship, where you're like, it's teens trying to work out who they are and trying to work out how they relate to like everyone else and everyone else's identities, and no one's quite sure what their identity is and what the identity of the people around them is. So you're constantly kind of like guessing and trying things out and being like, what happens if I call you dude? How do you respond to that? Badly? Okay, cool. That's like, oh, like
that sounds so good.
Can I invite you to come and like do a nail night? Oh, I hit your gender battleship. Excellent, cool. Like,
okay. I think we're at the point where we're wrapping up. So, Ash, do you wanna do your shout outs and stuff?
Yeah, sure. Manners asked the question, how do you take on gender stuff in games media without cis people jumping all over you for excluding them? Fuck them, who cares?
Well, I think the real thing is like, okay, cisgendered people, take a look at everything in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Tell me how excluded you feel then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, hi, I'm Ash. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, Tumblr, and my blog, acgiac.net, at acgiac. That's ACEGIAK, Alpha Charlie Echo, Golf India, Alpha Kilo. That includes Patreon. You can find me on Patreon there, and that's where you can see my game design stuff that I'm working on. So you get previews to all that sort of stuff. And you can also, if you check out my blog, acgiac.net, there are games on there. Most of the games I release both paid and for free. So you can pay for it if you have money, and if you don't, Just take it. Go on. Play a game.
Go with my blessing.
Yeah, like if you don't have any money, I don't want, like, if you can't afford, you know, your meds and food and petrol, I don't want your money. If you can afford those, I sometimes can't afford food and petrol, so I would like some. Thank you. Yeah. And you can follow me on Twitch, because we play role-playing games on Twitch as well.
Go, definitely follow Ash's stuff on Twitch, and then go look in her VODs and find the Court of Swords micro RPG, because I got to play a giant snake lady, and it was the best.
So good. I loved the episode where she was cold.
Yes, the episode.
The
whole episode where I was just a cold snake.
Aww.
Yeah, you just been like, oh, this sucks.
Elf, do your shoutouts.
Hello, friends. I'm sure you know about me by now if you are a constant watcher of this show. If not, I'm Distracted Elf, the other co-host of this show. You can find me at twitch.tv/distractedelf or on Twitter @distractedelf, where I am distracted and an elf. Cool.
Thank you, Elf. Hi, everyone. You know me. I'm Ashley. This is my channel. I do games and stuff. I haven't had like a consistent theme recently, but I'm trying to work on that. But you can follow me here at twitch.tv/AshleyNova. You can follow me on Twitter at Ashley_Nova_, and keep your eyes peeled for April 6th, because that's when the first 2 episodes of the new podcast that I'm on is coming out.
Yes.
And it's gonna be great. So keep your eyes peeled.
Yes.
And yeah, that's it. Thank you both. This was really good.
It was a good time.
I feel like we could do it. We could do a follow-up episode of this.
I mean, there's like 100 other things
Yeah.
we could talk about in this particular field. It is a vast topic that an hour is not even close to enough time to
listen. I'm happy to come back and chat. Like that's the thing.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Okay. We'll see everyone later. Bye.
Bye.